Welcome to the Macworld Podcast. I'm Roman Loyola with Jason Cross.
Good morning.
And Michael Simon.
Hello, sir.
Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference kicks off with a keynote presentation on June 10th. And on today's show, we're going to preview WWDC. Is it too much to say that this WWDC might be the most meaningful conference Apple has had in a long time? Maybe even ever?
I mean, I wouldn't say ever. I think there's a lot of attention on it because of the whole AI stuff. But I think when all the dust clears, and we'll talk about it over the next hour or so, but I don't think we're going to get the kind of dramatic overhaul that everyone thinks they're going to get.
I mean, they're saying it's going to be the biggest update in years, and that's maybe
That's not
true.
saying a whole lot. Yeah. That's kind of okay.
like every year,
we haven't had a
been,
big one in a long time.
Yeah, there's always kind of one big feature, like the app library or the home screen personalization or something. But then the rest of it's just because Apple's apps all update with iOS. And they're all part of iOS, then all these like app updates that anybody else would just dribble out throughout the year, all these little features and little things become big iOS things.
Yeah, that's the most frustrating thing about iOS. Mac OS to a lesser extent, but it's really iOS that you got to wait like a year for a new version of anything that you use every day.
Well, no, I mean they do them in the point releases.
Occasionally,
they do them in the point releases,
not like major new features. It's usually just an annual thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely true. And so, I expect some big stuff, and I expect some good things. But like the most important in a long time, I don't know. Like when they introduced Apple Silicon was kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well.
I mean, last year was Vision Pro. Like that's pretty big.
Yeah, that was pretty big.
I mean, it was big because they made it big. Like it's not impacting a lot of people, and it certainly hasn't changed the trajectory of Apple. In fact, they brought out a VR headset and promptly pivoted to AI real hard.
Right.
So it actually, they're not even like, it doesn't even seem like they're all in on the whole spatial computing thing. It seems like they got it out the door and then went real hard on something else.
Well, they're not mutually exclusive.
They're not giving up. I'm just saying, like, this isn't the spatial computing WWDC. It's the AI WWDC.
Right. Yeah.
So, I think like that's still some time out. So just in terms of it being impactful to a lot of people, like it's important to Apple because they've got to be an AI company now. But like, I think it's just because this is going to reach over 1 billion people this fall, all this stuff. And there's no AI stuff out there that's that popular.
Right.
Like that's 1 billion people popular. Building it into the OS is how you do this,
I use my parents as like kind of the litmus test for all this stuff, and like they have no idea what ChatGPT is. Like they know like a vague terms of something about it, but you're right. Most people aren't using this stuff. They're just not.
Yeah, they claim ChatGPT is by far the most popular, and they claim outside of Google forcing an AI search result on you, like deliberate use of AI, they're the most popular. They claim 100 million weekly users.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot, but it's not. Siri getting AI chops and being
half of a tenth of what
having
Apple
billions of requests every single day, right?
But Mike brings up a good fact about the way Apple makes its announcements, and it's pretty much major announcements, pretty much on an annual basis, and it's been that way for a very long time. It was kind of emphasized to me, like last night, the Computex trade show is going on, and I was watching some of the Intel keynotes, and not practically, but just about every other word uttered was AI. AI this, AI that, AI this, AI that. So then what happens is, for people like us who follow Apple very closely, you get this sense of like, is Apple falling behind? Because Apple hasn't done anything. You know what I mean?
I mean, here's the deal. If they wanted to infuse AI into last year's keynote, the same keynote, they could have. Like, there are plenty of things on with Apple Silicon, with our devices, with the Mac, with the iPhone, with all that stuff that use so-called AI. They just haven't called it that.
Well,
so it's there.
But in particular, it's that generative AI stuff that is the rage, and that's what the investors want to see. That's what the stock market's moving on. So they're going to have to make that push. You're going to hear AI and Gen AI and generative AI a lot more, because that's kind of like, you're absolutely right, Mike. Like, every time you open your camera, AI is going on your phone. It has been for years. But that's not Gen AI. That's not what the colloquial popular view of AI is today. Things like ChatGPT and DALL-E and Midjourney and stuff like that are. And that's what they're going to need to kind of hook into.
And Apple is very well positioned for all of this. Like, so Intel's big thing is that the RAM is going to be on the chip. Like, okay, like we've had that for forever with Apple.
Yeah,
and the reason why is so everything goes quick, faster, and more efficient, and all that stuff for AI. Apple is well positioned with the neural network, with the M series chip, with the A series chip, for all this stuff to just happen when it comes out in September.
Yeah, that's their big. That's going to be their big hook here, is that not everything will run on every device, as we're starting to hear rumors about. We speculated before, but some of it will run in the cloud, so it won't matter. But they can push out an update and have devices in the market that will use all this stuff.
A lot of them.
Everyone will get. Whereas all this, you're hearing about these Copilot PCs from Microsoft. That's going and buying a new laptop.
That's not now. Right. Exactly right. Yeah.
You know, they're all coming out this summer. They're, quote, beating Apple to the punch. But for first to 1 billion, it's going to be Apple, because they push out that's going to happen on like September 20th. They're going to have like 1 billion people using their AI. Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to be. They'll be late, but it's going to be their whole user base in a way, right?
Yeah, and like I said, we'll break this down into sections, but that's also the risk, the gamble of WWDC, because Apple has to get it right, because everyone's going to, at least if there's a Gen I chatbot, if there's a Gen I image thing, or everyone's going to do that first, so it's got to work.
Yeah. And it's got to work, and it has to be safe, right? Yeah. The first thing someone's going to do is try and make it Tim Cook with a Nazi armband or something. Somehow they're going to make it, or give a wrong answer, like an unsafe answer, like we've seen Google's thing doing. And it's going to be headlines in the way that it's not for any other company.
Or if it goes too far, the other side with too many guardrails is going to be that too. Like, they got to strike
this is
balance.
Useless.
Yep.
Yeah. So, should we just basically dive in?
Let's just get it.
Yeah. Start with.
So we probably could start with iOS, because that's going to be basically the leader for Apple, because it has all those devices.
Literally start with iOS generally. That's their first one, the biggest one, the one everyone's looking for, and it also kind of sets the tone for the rest of the OSs. Like, iOS is the thing.
Most of the features, it'll be the most feature rich. If there's anything that's kind of missing features, it's other operating systems.
And a lot of the features. Yes, a lot of the features carry over to Mac OS and in other
and they
places.
even do, sometimes they'll hold back a feature and they'll be like, this is coming to iPad. Oh, and it's also on iOS. Like, just so the iPad section doesn't feel like it's just also
a feature in the iPad section, and there's also an iOS. Like, the Freeform app was a great example of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So since this conference is going to have an AI focus, it only makes sense that Siri will get an AI boost, it sounds like.
It's all the AI stuff is expected to center around Siri.
I wouldn't be surprised if Siri gets
like
its own little section before it all.
Right.
That permeates everything. Apple Watch, Mac OS, Apple TV, all of it,
Yeah.
So I wonder if they kind of pull that out first and say, all right, here's what we're starting with. Siri 2.0.
I want them to call it that, but they're not gonna. So among the things Siri's supposed to get is it's supposed to get sort of a more natural and conversational tone, which we're hearing from some of these other voice chatbots and stuff now. Better understanding of what you say and what you mean by what you say, and a better ability to talk to you, better understanding of what's on your device and how to use that stuff. And then Apple has also made a deal with OpenAI, apparently. This is not, they haven't announced this. This is apparently. But we don't know exactly which OpenAI technology they're using and where. It's assumed it's ChatGPT, and it's assumed it's going to be kind of built into Siri, but we're not exactly sure how or what the thing is. It could be just like when you ask Siri a broader question that it would need to use the sort of internet for. It's going to be a version of ChatGPT that's got guardrails and stuff on it, or maybe it's something else entirely.
Right. Yeah.
But it's expected to do all of that stuff a little better. You can have more of a conversation with your Siri, and it's supposed to understand what you mean more, sound more conversational, be more like talking to ChatGPT. If you remember, any of you saw ChatGPT 4.0's announcement, they did a lot of their demo was done via a voice chat thing. Where it could sound sarcastic, or it could, tell jokes, and you could interrupt it, and all these other things. I think it's going to be more like that. That's not out yet from ChatGPT. Their new model's out, but the voice part hasn't launched yet. But I think that's a good example of what we can kind of maybe expect.
It would be nice if
Siri in a broad
it could just do two things in succession. Because right now you have to start it again to turn off two different lights, or to do whatever.
Or even if you don't have to say the trigger word again, you have to say one thing, let it do it, then say the next thing.
Yeah. Right. Like compound sentences would be amazing, but just the ability to have it understand a second thing without having to re-trigger it all over again.
Right. Turn on the lights in the living room, and what's the weather going to be like today? And just let it just do both things. That is one of the things we've heard about that is coming in a future update to iOS. It's supposed to be an update to iOS 18 for early next year. So iOS 18.3 or something like that is a new system in which Siri will be able to have used its screen ability to read your screen and understand buttons and all the APIs in the thing to be able to operate apps for you. So when you say something like, telling it to email somebody, they've already got frameworks for that. But like things that you don't have frameworks for, and it would be hundreds of different commands. And that will start with single commands just in Apple's apps, and then open up to, like you said, compound commands that are in any apps. So you could do something like see a web page and ask Siri to, hey, can you summarize this in 50 words or less and text it to Michael?
Yeah.
And it would just go do those two things separately without you having to open up apps. That is going to, if they can pull that off, that is sort of an amazing transformation. That's the promise of all these like Humane Pin and Rabbit R1 and stuff like that. It's the idea that you don't need to go into apps to do all these things, that your AI will kind of understand how apps work and do them for you. And they haven't pulled, those other companies have not pulled that off at all. It's been a disaster. But if Siri can do that through some updates eventually, that would totally change the way everyone uses their phone.
Yeah.
Speaking of ways of using your phone, AI is supposed to be have an influence on the home screen So we might get the ability to have color-coded icons on our home screen.
Yeah, I don't actually care about that, but I know some people do. It's been a thing in Android for a long time. But,
yeah.
I mean, I guess. I don't know. If I was an app developer, I wouldn't really love that because, like, our eyes are trained to certain colors or certain apps, certain, put things in folders. Yeah. And then now if you could turn everything blue or whatever it's going to be, like, why? It kind of takes away the personality of the apps, but, whatever. It's fine.
That's not the home screen change I'm looking forward to. It's supposedly you'll finally be able to put icons wherever you want, leaving empty spaces without having to fill it with
the grid.
Well, they'll be on the grid, but they now all fill from top left and they go down. And there's nothing you can do about that except for maybe putting a widget. But you can't have any empty spaces. Now you can have empty spaces in your grid. You pick where you want your app icon or folder, and it goes there. I think every Android phone has done since, like, I guess the beginning. But yeah, one of those things is just like, come on, Apple, you don't need to hold our hand that badly.
Yeah, certainly not anymore. I mean, we can figure it out from here on out. It's okay.
Yeah.
So if you don't care about the colored icons on the homepage, maybe you'll care about the emojis in your messages. We're supposed to be there's just so much stuff going on here. I'm not going to be able to do these segues forever.
Yeah, I should just go down the list. That's a case of using generative AI that I think is really smart because it's a lot safer. And it's also unique and something everybody likes and will use. So the idea is when you type stuff in your messages and whatever, it can use generative AI to make an emoji for the thing you want when one doesn't exist. And it'll be in the style of the emojis that Apple uses, but just for something that's not there. I think that's amazing. I think that's a great idea. Yeah. I will probably use that. I will probably be typing and see an emoji pop up in my little toolbar and go like, oh, cool. Just send that to someone.
Yeah, that's another thing that I wonder how that's going to be implemented. Like, will there be a library of 20,000 images that it draws from? Or is it going to do it on the fly, like literally create them? Like if you have one for, I don't know, pacifier, will it be different the next time that comes up with a different color, a slightly different look?
Yeah, like, that's a good question. Like caching it, sort of.
Yeah, right.
Because I think they'll start from nothing, the way these GenAI image creation things work, because they start with noise and then they work backwards toward an image in a style and stuff like that. And to do that on a little emoji icon wouldn't be that hard. But yeah, if I use the same one again, is it going to remember the last 300 I made or whatever,
right.
and cache them, and then just so I keep using the same one? I would hope so, because I think that's going to be like that for a lot of people. I think there's going to be ones they use all the time, and you would want them to be the same. At least coming from you. Like, they're not going to be, if you made pacifier and if I made pacifier, they might look slightly different, just like a tiny bit. But, yours should be the same every time you send it. Also, just for efficiency, like why remake?
So this custom icon feature would probably only work between people who are using the Messages app. See, I was trying to make a segue to RCS there, RCS support.
I guess there's no reason it couldn't be an RCS. You would just be sending an image, so it wouldn't be in line with the text. But Apple is incentivized to, when they add RCS to Messages, which is also coming this year, they're incentivized to make sure that iMessage still has more features. So I'm going to guess this is exclusive to iMessage and like maybe Apple's Mail app or something.
Yeah, so there's been rumors that RCS support is coming to the iPhone.
Well, they announced that, actually.
And that was announced.
Yeah.
But Apple's taking their sweet time implementing it. Maybe it'll show up at WWDC. I have a feeling it won't. I have a feeling it just, not for no reason other than they just haven't done it now. Why would they do it at WWDC?
I think they'll just it'll be a one-off, like it'll be part of one sentence, or it'll be on that big board of like messages changes, and they have the big diagrams they have. It'll be a bullet point on that or something. When they announced it last year, they said coming later in 2024, which everyone pretty much immediately said, "Oh, that means iOS 18."
Yeah, for sure.
And so the question is it iOS 18 or 18.1 or when are they going to start testing this? Which features will it have? Because RCS has a fair number of sort of optional components. Some of which are kind of Google's own thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if it had no features at all. And just the very basic that it has to give people.
Yeah, like RCS, whatever, 1.2 or whatever the standard is. Yeah. Certainly like, encryption will not be one of them.
Well, unless they said they were working with the people to build it into by default. So it could be
the board, to make it part of
but they're not going to develop their own encryption like Google did. It's either for everyone or for no one.
Yeah. We're also going to get a bunch of new accessibility features in iOS 18. I guess some of these tied into AI, some of them not. Like we'll get adapted voice shortcuts, which will let users, turn on accessibility features using a phrase. That's kind of weird.
Just to be clear, Apple already announced these features.
Yes, these features have already.
These are all the rest of the stuff we've been talking about are just rumors, but Apple every year comes out with like a chunk of accessibility stuff before WWDC just to kind of give it its own platform. So there's like 5 or 6 features here that are coming out.
It's on World Accessibility Day. They always highlight those things.
Yeah. Yeah, and this was like, 2 or 3 weeks ago where they had made the announcement? Yeah. So they hyped a bunch of these features.
And there's always some of these things that, even though they're accessibility features and maybe they'll be buried in the accessibility menu, they're really great things for everyone.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm really hyped for this whole thing about making it so you can read your car in the phone read your phone in the car without getting motion sick. I think it's a really cool idea. There's these little dots on the side of the screen that will react to the accelerometer changes. So if the car, say, accelerates and it has that forward acceleration, the dots will slide back. Or if it turns to the right, the dots will slide to the left. Basically making it so that you're not looking at a still image while your inner ear feels a change in motion. Right? It's letting your eyes see a change in motion while your ears feel a change in motion.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Like you don't have to have any kind of accessibility needs or whatever to want to read your car in the phone.
As someone who gets car sick and has gotten car sick for his whole life, that I'm going to turn that on.
Yeah, I'm just super excited to see if that works. Yeah. I don't get car sick, but I know people who do, and I think I can't wait to teach them how to turn that on 8 layers deep in their accessibility menu and just see if it changes their lives.
Yeah.
And there are some times when these features in a future version of iOS do become part of like the main iOS menus. Like the big one is the iPad cursor. Was an accessibility feature for a couple of years, and then they brought it to the main settings.
Yep. Yeah. Some other features that have been announced is eye tracking. That seems interesting to me. You're supposed to be able to navigate the iPhone and iPad just using your eyes.
Yeah, that's a Vision Pro thing. without, a $3,500 piece of equipment.
Kind of, yeah. I don't know how fast and accurate it is compared to that, but don't they have that on the Mac? Isn't that a current Mac accessibility thing, or am I daydreaming?
It might be. Let me see.
That is a thing on some home computers, and I think you can buy software to do that, where as an accessibility thing, to use your webcam for eye tracking to select stuff on the screen for people who have like motion problems where they can't manipulate a mouse accurately or whatever.
So I'm looking at if you enable the accessibility keyboard, you can use Duell, which lets you perform mouse actions using eye or head tracking technology.
Right. And you might need a particular thing to do that or something. But yeah, it's new to iOS and iPadOS at least.
This goes back to High Sierra, it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a thing on Windows and Mac for a while, and with third-party software to do fancy stuff too. So, but it's cool that they have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Duell. I did not know.
I didn't know it had a name. Yeah.
I forgot about it.
It's capitalized.
Yeah. I had a segue in my head, and then I just forgot what it was going to be.
Wait, if we don't want to,
I got caught up in Dwell. Yeah.
If we don't want to spend all day on iOS, you want me just to like rapid fire down some
go ahead. Go feel free. Right. I mean, like I said, there's just so much to cover.
It's hard. Yeah.
Apple will probably boil it down to 10.
Yes.
The accessibility stuff won't be mentioned, I doubt, because they already announced it.
Right. And there'll be a big focus on Siri and AI stuff, but some of the app stuff. So we already talked about RCS support and the custom emojis and stuff. Maps are going to get things like some of the stuff that was on Apple Watch Ultra, like topographic maps. There's a new calculator app that will have like a history sidebar and stuff like that. It's finally coming to iPad, and it'll be on Mac OS too. So like, I think all the OSs get like this new calculator app. Mm-hmm. Supposedly an overhaul to the fitness app, but nobody knows what. Same thing with the health app, the fitness and health app. So I think it's just maybe some visual refresh or something, reorganization a little bit, reorganizing settings, some changes to Control Center, including a new music player, new home controls. Notes is going to get auto transcription of voice. It's going to have voice recording built into the Notes app instead of just the voice recorder app, but also auto transcription using the new AI stuff, and some new AI math stuff where it will automatically solve formulas, and then it'll auto complete like complex math formulas and stuff like that. Music app's supposed to get custom playlists and something called smart song transitions, though we don't know what that is. Like there's already a song transition like fade in,
like a crossfade.
Yeah, it's like a crossfade. It's like a smart version of that, maybe. I don't even know what it's supposed to be. Smart song transitions, whatever that is. Pages, numbers, and Keynote are all supposed to get the artwork. So you're supposed to get some Gen AI features, help you generate slides, write paragraphs, things like that. The Photos app is supposed to get a cleanup function that's like Google's Magic Eraser, select an object to delete from the background, that kind of thing. And maybe some other AI enhancements. Wouldn't surprise me if some of that was like styles, like take a photo and make this a cartoon style or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to use Gen AI without like getting in trouble. Like it's starting with your photo, right? So it's not going to get in trouble making something new from scratch that is offensive. Safari's going to get a bunch of stuff, including like a search assistant and like summarizing web pages, stuff we've seen from other browsers on desktop computers and stuff where they're starting to build Gen AI into the browser. We're supposed to see some of that. One of the things mentioned for that I think sounds really cool. It's the idea of a web eraser where when you go to a web page, you can grab the web eraser and erase part of that page. And then every time you go to that page, that part will be erased. It won't be there for you, right? I can see that being a cool idea.
Could we use that on our own website?
Yes, a lot of people would use that on a lot of websites. I think. Yes. I don't know how well that's gonna circumvent ads, because ads are so dynamic and they're dynamic loading and all this other stuff. But I think a lot of people might use that, especially to get rid of big headers or artwork or things like that they don't want to see. I don't know. Yeah. It's a cool idea. Shortcuts. Lots of Gen AI stuff supposedly in shortcuts, not only more powerful shortcuts you'll be able to make, but like using Gen AI to help you make a shortcut that does the thing you want to do. Mm-hmm.
Which voice memos. I mean, that's kind of like the dream of shortcuts. Like shortcuts is a fantastic app, but I'm going to say maybe 10%, maybe 15% of the users know like what to do, how to use it regularly to set things up.
Way less.
Okay, maybe so. Maybe so.
That's overblown by 10. I think 1 in 100 Apple users
1%
ever use a shortcut ever.
Okay.
Much less make one.
Yeah. So let's say it's somewhere in between those numbers. Regardless, Apple, if they develop a way where it prompts you regularly, where it notices things you do on your phone, like it's going to become a way more valuable feature because it's quite good.
Yeah,
but you need to really know what you're doing to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and this thing where it's just like Siri will pop up like in Spotlight search a suggestion for a shortcut. I still to this day take people who know how to use their phones and show them that Spotlight search exists. And they're like, I had no idea this was there. And why would you? Drag downward on your home screen on an invisible, there's no prompt. There's no visual indicator that this ever exists. Nobody even knows it exists. And shortcuts is like even below that in terms of ever being used. And it can do such cool stuff.
It can.
So that has great potential. I don't know how Apple's going to convince people to try using it, but it has great potential. And then voice memos, we already talked about it in Notes app, but in the voice memos app too, you'll get like auto transcription stuff, which sounds like an extension of the voicemail, like live transcription for voicemail, like a just more advanced language model and doing that. Mm-hmm. For all your voice memos. It's a cool idea. That's kind of the overall big rundown.
Yeah.
Plus the things we've already mentioned, like the home screen and RCS.
That's probably half of what Apple actually has planned. Like a lot of those features seems like they would be on a big slide at the end of a larger presentation. Like the big stuff is what isn't on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really the software stuff is the stuff that always ends up surprising us from Apple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They come out and show something with software, even if it's something that we heard about. When you see how it looks and how it works, you're going, "Oh, that's amazing!
Right.
That's really cool."
Yeah. So should we talk about some of the Mac stuff? I mean, the Mac stuff is basically a lot of the iOS stuff, specifically with the app stuff. So like Safari, the Notes app.
Yep. I would expect the Photos apps thing and stuff to all be in there.
The calendar reminders, all the stuff that's rumored to be in iOS 18 could happen in macOS 15 as well.
There's a rumor that calendar and reminders are going to kind of merge, and I tell you what, I am all for that. I hate that
cross-populate at least, right?
Yes.
I think they're supposed to be separate apps, but like if I make a reminder, it'll show on my calendar.
Yes.
And if I have a calendar appointment that is a reminder to do something, it'll show in reminders. Like that would be nice.
Yeah.
I don't need all my reminders in there. I have my grocery list in reminders. That should not be in my calendar.
Right. But anything that's time or date based.
Exactly. I also have a reminder every month to give my dog her heartworm pill.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Definitely, if I look at my calendar, why not see that on the calendar?
Yeah, I've been aching for that. It's almost ridiculous that it wasn't there from the start.
Yeah, it's silly.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Mac OS is rumored to get some system settings tweaks. The UI was changed back in, was it Ventura?
Yeah. Two versions, years ago.
Versions ago. Yeah. And it was tweaked it was redesigned so it would better match the iOS settings app.
Well, or match it at all.
Right.
Before it was totally different.
It's its own thing, yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is a lot of people were kind of like, what did Apple do with this?
Well, they overly simplified it. They moved some stuff into not intuitive locations.
That's part of the big issue, yeah.
They very much iOS-ified it in the sense that it feels like you're using an iOS app on your Mac. It's not Mac-like. So, we've all gotten used to it over 2 years, but it could still use some tweaking. It could use some enhancements. Yeah. So
a big part of it is just going to be reordering things, apparently. Like the group that is general appearance, accessibility, so that's going to be up high instead of like the third group down. It's just sort of, some of it's reordering, some of it's which stuff is in which area.
It'd be nice if the AI thing let us reorder them ourselves and put it, like, same thing with the app library screen. Like, let us put those little folder things where we want them to be, the things we use most, et cetera, et cetera.
Right. So the app library auto folders drives me nuts.
Yeah.
But it'd be precisely because it changes. That's why I think maybe they probably won't do that with the settings app, because the last thing they want is for you to reorder it. And then you don't have that. We talked about, like, you get a remembrance of where something is, and you don't want to reorder the categories. And then your IT guy doesn't know where your thing is when they're trying to help you on the phone and you forgot where you put it. Like, having a set order is probably important in settings, but it needs to be a different order, and they need to help you find stuff better. I think we talked, was it last week, about how we've all given up and just search in settings to find anything. And that's not a great experience.
Yeah. Another macOS app that is going to get a redesign reportedly is the calculator app.
Which is fine because it's not really anything on the Mac. It's literally like an iOS iPhone app. Like some
let me put it in the menu
functions bar. Would be nice. Yeah.
Let me put it in the menu bar.
Sure.
Yeah,
like that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it used to be in the old iOS. It used to be old Mac OS. You used to be able to put it as a widget. And then they changed when they changed to the new widget styles and stuff. Calculator's gone. That's where I used to keep it all the time, because when I had to do something, I could just move my mouse over there. It would slide over, and I would just start typing.
Yeah,
because I just need to add two numbers together. My brain can't.
That was. I'd be all for. I'm assuming you're talking about Dashboard, which was one of my favorite features.
I'm talking about the little widgets that slide over from the right side of your screen.
You're not even going back that far.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about the widgets. When they changed the widgets, there's no calculator widgets. The old widgets that slid over from the side. There used to be a calculator one.
I want Dashboard to be back because I love that thing.
Oh, that's never going to happen. Apple's anti-Dash.
They can't make an generative AI version of
it. Control Center is supposed to get a revamp as well.
Yeah, that would probably mimic whatever the iPhone gets.
Yeah, probably similar stuff to that. I think Control Center is probably underused on the Mac. It's pretty neat.
It is good. It works. I only go there when I can't. When it doesn't recognize my headphones.
One of the things I think people don't understand about Control Center is you can drag those controls off onto the menu bar.
Right.
Like you can straight up drag
all of them.
Yeah.
You can go.
Like you can grab the display one and drag it to the menu bar.
Right. So Bluetooth and all that stuff. Right.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned something from our own podcast today. I did not know you could do that.
Well, I always knew you could do that, but I just kind of thought everyone knew it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things that like there's so many cool little things that you can do on Apple products that because they don't have any visible indication that you can do them, nobody knows you can do them.
Yeah.
You would just have to randomly accidentally do it.
Stumble onto it, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So like spotlight searches like that, even on Mac, I show people like command space and now type literally anything and it's searching all your stuff and it's finding all your apps and they're like, wow. And I'm like, it's nuts that I have to show this to somebody who's been who uses a Mac all day, every day.
Yeah.
Apple should be showing this to people.
Yeah.
So make your life better.
So those are some of the things we could expect from macOS. Again, we're just probably what's the term about? Oh, I forget what the term is. Something
scratching
about
the surface.
Scratching the surface. That's what it was. We're just scratching the surface. I had a migraine earlier today, so my brain is extremely slow.
I mean, honestly, macOS is usually a very short section.
Yes.
So we'll see about that. What we mentioned might be it. Yeah, maybe there'll be some stage manager stuff.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I won't say it's neglected, but in the sense that it's much more of a mature operating system than the rest of Apple's, that there's not a ton that they need to do year over year to keep it going.
Yeah. Most of what they need to do is just sort of keeping up with the rest of the stuff that advances in the ecosystem. Photos, messages, calendar, all the other apps, all the things that Apple does there. It just needs to make sure that happens on the Mac as well.
Yeah.
Especially when it's something embarrassing like not having a calculator app.
As for the other operating systems, we haven't really heard much about watchOS or tvOS, have we?
No, only for people to say that they're going to be really minor things. Like they're not. These are not the big updates. The big watchOS update was last year. It's going to be relatively minor stuff.
The AI stuff would play well on the watch, but I don't know how it works with that chip and that platform and that UX because it's different.
Yeah.
Certainly with the privacy stuff. So I'm curious to see how that gets integrated.
I would imagine a lot of Siri stuff just because it is linked to your phone and it could transmit your request to the phone and back will work on watch and it won't even be part of the presentation. There's always some new fitness stuff. There's always a new workout type or something new in their running app or, their running tracking or something like that. So I'd be shocked if there was no new fitness feature.
Sure.
In the watch. Apple TV, I haven't heard anything about tvOS except that maybe better controls for more of your smart home stuff. It has very limited smart home controls right now.
Yeah.
Other than that, I haven't heard that there's.
Yeah.
And WWDC will be the 1-year anniversary of Apple Vision Pro.
I mean, yes and no.
Yep.
1-year anniversary of the announcement.
Of its announcement.
Of the announcement.
In February.
Yeah. Do we expect anything for Vision OS?
I mean, they're gonna announce Vision OS 2, and it's supposed to have some better, building on all the AI work they're doing in Siri and all that other stuff, better voice control, and so it already has some of that because they want you to use voice to do things that are complicated on there, but some of that will transfer over to Vision OS. But I don't think it's not meant to be a massive overhaul of the interface or experience yet.
There's some rumors say that it will get the remaining Apple apps that weren't native.
Yeah,
will
some
now
that
be
weren't
native.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of fairly important ones that aren't. But it's understandably not really a priority for Apple because they're not selling many of them.
There's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs to be done for international rollouts. And I think that's a lot of the priority because by the end of this year, they want it on sale in a lot more markets. And that
I wouldn't be surprised if they announced
language coding work
at WWDC.
Yeah, at least the first ones.
To at least the UK and Canada or something like that.
Yep. I hear China is top of the list.
Sure.
For like July or something. But Chinese language isn't just a matter of like, well, let's translate the text, right? You have to do some very different formatting of certain things, and some buttons text won't fit anymore. So there's a lot of work that you need to do when you make your entire OS work in another region, another language. And then legal stuff, you're walking around with a dozen cameras on your face, and that may have legal ramifications in certain markets that it doesn't in the US. So
AI seems to be an ideal fit for smart home stuff. But Apple's presence in the smart home arena, I don't know, does it really have a presence? I mean, there's HomeKit products.
It's there.
Yeah.
So should we expect to see some home-related stuff at WWDC? There was a report by Mike Gurman who said that Control Center is going to get some home components added to it. So you could quickly add some of that.
There are home controls in Control Center. It's like they're going to change the way they look or work or something. There's always something. I don't know how much time they'll spend on it, but a lot of what has been going on in the smart home thing has been centered around Matter and support for Matter, and then
which they're a part of.
They've been supporting it. It supports Matter 1.1 or whatever it is now, and then as Matter, new versions of the Matter standard come out and support more types of devices, those things get supported. But like, we haven't heard a lot. I think when was the last significant home change was maybe HomeKit Secure Video.
I think so.
They did that whole app hierarchy thing where they changed the architecture, not the hierarchy. They changed that. Was that about a year and a half ago?
Right.
And listen, the home app is good. HomeKit products, although there are a lot fewer of them than other ones like Alexa and Google Assistant, they're good. No, it's top quality stuff. It's funny that for years and years and years and years, everyone kept saying, "Oh, Apple needs to get into this space, and really, the rest of the industry, whatever the industry comprises, hasn't really done much. So Apple might not be a major player, but they're still a pretty big player because there's no leading. Alexa is probably the closest. Like if you want to talk about smart assistants, Amazon and Alexa with Ring and things like that, but it's not great. I recently just got rid of all my Ring stuff because it's not all that reliable. It's not the greatest experience.
Yeah, if it wasn't my home alarm, I probably would do the same thing.
Yeah,
I wish it worked with Siri and everything.
Yep.
I would much rather be able to tell Siri to arm my alarm than have to open an app.
Yep.
But these things are, and that's up to Amazon more than anything. But even companies like Amazon who've been leaders in this space have started to pull back their investment and their work because they're like, well, we've poured so much money into this and it didn't have the intended effect of like getting everybody to buy more stuff on Amazon or whatever. It's never made money. Like overall, it's never made money. And Apple probably has, just because the profit margin on a HomePod's probably really good. So I don't think they've made much, and I don't think they care that much. But I think they're not willing to just lose a bunch of money to like win the smart home race. Mm-hmm. I think they're happy with Matter. I think they're happy with like, okay, now there's a standard. Let's just keep pushing a standard and move forward.
I kind of leapfrogged or skipped the iPad OS, not because I ignore it, but a lot of the iOS features carry over to the iPad.
Yeah, it would be nice if they didn't. Well, listen, we want the iOS features on the iPad, but with the launch of the iPad Air, and more importantly, the iPad Pro last month, it would be really nice if Apple said, all right, listen, we are going to make this a true separate platform. not Mac OS, not iOS, but its own thing.
Mhm.
And here's what it looks like. They're not going to do that, but it would be nice if they did.
Yeah, every sort of prediction article about WWDC comes to the same conclusion. Well, iPadOS is going to get the new calculator and the other stuff. The
and
photo
Craig Federighi will make a joke about how it's, cutting edge calculator.
Right. And what they say is, well, what we want is we want them to really get a handle on multitasking because there's too many different ways to do it, and Stage Manager's not good enough. And file management, because when it comes to getting real work done, that's where the friction is. Files is not Finder or close to it.
No.
And if you want to work with your data, starting data first and dragging things around and so on, like Files is a real lackluster app for that. It's a great app for a phone app to be like, what's stored locally on my phone? It's pretty powerful for that, for like a built-in app for that. But for a keyboard and touchpad and getting real work done on my iPad, it's a terrible file manager, just not robust enough. And we haven't heard anything about any of those things happening.
No.
Doesn't mean they won't. Again, the software, they can surprise us, but I think we might be in for another year of saying, once again, iPad hardware is fantastic.
Second to none.
And the software is holding it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. The iPad Pro might be the nicest thing Apple has ever made, ever.
That new iPad Pro, it's nicer than
gorgeous.
Any Mac.
Right.
It's great.
It's amazing. The screen is OLED. The body is 5 millimeters thin. It's gorgeous.
And I feel like
you buy it and you say, like, all right, what am I supposed to do with this thing?
Yeah, I'm going to browse the web and watch TV on it.
I could do the same thing on a $329 10th gen iPad from Amazon as I can on this $1,200 thing.
And it's not like they don't work hard at making a good video editing experience and audio, like Logic and stuff like that. It's just like, that's just not for everyone.
It's not. And it's different with the Mac.
All the Pro users.
Like if you buy a $2,000 Mac Pro versus a $1,000 MacBook Air, there's a clear difference in what you can get done, how fast you can get it done. That's not the case with the iPad. It's not. You use an iPad Pro, you use a 10th gen model, you're going to be able to do a lot of the same stuff, except for, like Jason said, like real high-end video work. And if you want to buy Final Cut Pro, but it shouldn't just be for those people. Like there's a world of stuff you could be doing on an iPad that you either can't do, or it's too hard to do, or it's just not intuitive, or you're going to spend longer than you would on a Mac because of multitasking and how things work. So
I mean, I have the easiest productivity job in the world in terms of like computer requirements, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not writing complicated code or doing heavy video editing. I'm a writer. I need light photo editing and to like with some, basic Photoshop layers type features, and writing, and then moving written things around between writing apps and web publishing platforms and stuff like that. That should be a slam dunk for the iPad, and it's not. I'm 10 times more productive on a Mac.
We've done this before in articles where one of us will try it for a week, and my God, we just cannot wait to get rid of it.
Like you can get it. Yeah, you can get your stuff done, but it's just so much friction.
So much longer. None of it's intuitive. And I agree with Jason. Like, I'd love to. Like, listen, I like my MacBook Pro a lot, but I would be perfectly fine to work on an iPad Pro or an iPad Air or something like that because it's lighter, it's thinner, you take it with you, the batteries last forever. Yeah. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. But we're not going to see that UI overhaul next week.
We're just all complaining.
We'll be talking about this in 2028.
Every time we bring up the iPad, we're just going to complain about iPadOS.
Yeah.
This is one of those areas where I feel like competition's letting us down, because if there were like, when it comes to buying a tablet, it's just iPad. there's other tablets out there, but they're getting crushed. Even the best Samsung tablets and all that stuff, they give them away with your Verizon subscription or something.
And Samsung make a high-end OLED 12-inch tablet.
Yeah.
It's just they don't sell them in the numbers. And listen, Samsung has the same issues that Apple has. It basically runs a version of their phone software. Like, it's all the same problems.
Yeah. Right. But what I'm saying is, if there was robust competition for Apple, if Apple was fighting for the tablet market, it would probably have a different priority about making all of the common complaints that everyone makes about iPads doing something about this. But like, what's their incentive to fix all this stuff? Yeah, if they're the
closest thing is probably like the Chromebooks is the closest thing, a touch Chromebook. But even though that's a different market, like you're right, the competition for that specific thing just really isn't there.
So why? So
yeah, I'm going to blame Samsung. Why make all this stuff work? Failures.
I'm just saying, why make all this stuff work if it's? Are they going to sell more iPads? They're already crushing the market. So yeah.
That's actually a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other discussion. That's not a WWDC thing. Yeah, I kind of went off base. Just delete that whole section, Roman. Just edit it all out.
That's pretty much this WWDC is going to be very software focused. Mark Gurman reported that it doesn't seem like there's any hardware announcements on the slate for next week.
Which we don't really expect. So the Mac's in that weird place right now where the M4 exists. None of the Macs have it. It would be strange for Apple to update the MacBook Air that just got an update in March.
Yeah. Right.
And there's the Studio and the Pro, which could get an M4, I guess. But there's talk that they're going to skip a generation, go from M2 to M4, but that's not going to happen until maybe later this year or early next. The iMac just got the M3. The MacBook Pro just got the M3. So it's in this weird little place that the rumor is that they had to give the iPad the M4 because of all of the AI stuff, the neural engine, the efficiency of the chip.
Yeah, an M3 wasn't going to cut it.
Right.
And it wouldn't be, or they could do an M3, but then they'd replace it with the M4 in 4 months.
In a few months.
Or be waiting until the end of next year for an iPad Pro with an M4. That is weird. They're in a weird spot, timing-wise.
Yeah.
So, we don't expect anything to happen there. We don't expect a new Apple TV or HomePod or AirPods Pro or any of that stuff. There's always a chance that Apple will announce some piece of hardware that isn't shipping until near the end of the year, which would be really unusual, but they do that sometimes. And that's the kind of stuff that can surprise us. They're not going to announce anything that's shipping this summer.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have to wait for the fall for any hardware announcements.
Probably.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Do you guys have any predictions for WWDC?
Are we going to get a skit again?
What is the skit going to be about?
Yeah, what's the skit?
Was there one last year? I don't remember.
Wasn't the Mother Earth thing last year?
Yes, it was the Mother Nature.
That was WW. I thought that was the iPhone one. That was WWDC.
It all blurs.
Maybe it was.
Now.
Maybe you're right.
Oh,
I thought that was the iPhone or Mac one. No, the Mac was that Halloween one. I thought it was the iPhone event with Mother Nature.
You might be right.
Yeah, no, it all blurs after a while.
Right, because that's what led into the Apple Watch.
Right.
But something like that, they like to.
They do love
like
skits.
to talk. They do love skits, and they do like to talk about their environmental stuff. But when there's something like WWDC where there's not going to be any hardware, then they often don't. Like, they save the environmental stuff for when they're going to talk about a product.
Mm-hmm.
Because then they can say, and this is the first carbon-free phone, or whatever.
They did that terrible one a couple years ago where Tim Cook was like Mission Impossible guy to put the chip in the iPad. I don't remember. Yeah. I don't even remember if that was WWDC or not. They all kind of blend together. Yeah, I don't know. I know there'll be a lot of cool transitions. It's going to be long. I bet it's over 2 hours.
I bet it's going to be long. It's going to be at least 90 minutes.
Yeah, at least, and if not pushing 2+.
Without any products to announce, I don't know. But 90 minutes is a long.
I mean, the thing is, they have to explain all that AI stuff from square one, like what it means, what it does, how it does it. You know,
they may skip a lot of that, how it does it thing.
Just a lot of that stuff
so private.
Right, and a lot of that stuff might be carried over to the individual sessions at WWDC.
I was gonna bring that up. That's sometimes where the coolest stuff is in the developer sessions about this framework or that new app's feature or something like that for developers. You get a tidbit of information that is like, well, that totally changes my perspective on this, how this app is going to be or something, and you get some cool information out of it.
If Qualcomm can bring back Justin Long, you think Apple will bring back John Hodgman?
I wish. Oh, that would be so great.
They did that once where he was like at the very tail end of some keynote.
Yeah. Yeah, he was in like after the credits, after they say goodbye, they had him for a second.
Yeah.
What was that about? I forget.
Oh, I don't remember. Yeah, that was, I can't remember what that exactly was about. Yeah. But yeah, they brought him back. All right. Well, WWDC starts on June 10th. Starts on June 10th. You can watch the keynote online at apple.com on their YouTube channel, in their TV app on Apple TV. The hardware, they're very different venues where you can watch the keynote on Monday, and it's at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So that's a normal time for us here in the U.S., not like 7 a.m. like the last keynote presentation. And then WWDC is going to be throughout the week. The rest of it is a developers conference where developers find out the latest tools and features and stuff that they can use. We'll have full coverage of WWDC next week. That does it for this episode of the Macworld Podcast, episode 867. Thanks to Jason Cross.
Thank you.
Thanks to Michael Simon.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks to you, the audience. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to the Macworld Podcast in the podcast app, on Spotify, or through any other podcast app. Do you have any comments or questions? Send us an email at podcast@macworld.com, or contact us through X, that's @Macworld, or on Threads, that's @Macworld_HQ, or on the Macworld Facebook page. Join us in the next episode of the Macworld Podcast as we talk about the latest in the world of Apple. See you next time.